Yo, what's going on guys? It's Gminers here, and usually I like to put out a bunch of builds each season, but nothing is really new this season, so the builds feel pretty stale. That being said, there is one build which I never ended up making a video on, which is one of the best in the game for DPS. This is a hunter build which revolves around the exotic gauntless young ahamkara spine and some additional setup so that you pretty much have infinite grenade spam against bosses, which is also going to end up triggering ignitions as well. This is basically like the hunter version of the Starfire protocol build and has even been used to solo caretaker. But it also works well when using just normal weapons too. It's not like the build is too different overall from your standard solar setup, so the build is pretty versatile. As always, if you guys do end up enjoying the video, make sure to drop a like and sub down below. And with that said, let's get into it. Starting off with the build, you are going to want most of what I'm running for very specific reasons. So super-wise, Blade Barrage tends to be the best option. This is the quickest super to get off in a rotation, so you won't have much downtime on your grenade spam. And with the damage we are dealing, we should be able to get super back for longer damage phases. Gambler's Dodge is up next. This is a must-have for the rotation we are using. We are going to be throwing our melee at bosses, and this will then let us get it back by dodging near them. Phantom Knives is also needed for the rotation. Young Ahamkara's Spine gives Tripmine energy back when doing ability damage, and since there are multiple knives, each dealing scorch damage, this will count as multiple instances of ability damage. Each instance is going to be 33% energy back, and each knife will end up being 30 stacks of Scorch for 90 in total, which will then help us cause ignitions. Lastly, we do have Trip Mines. These are going to hit super hard and also apply 60 Scorch stacks. And since we are running Young Ahamkara's Spine, these also get some increases in damage and effectiveness, which I will be going over later. Aspect-wise, we are really just running things here for the fragment slots, but first, Knock 'em Down is going to give us 2 slots, and this will also allow our melee to recharge on kills, and for our Blade Barrage to have additional knives. So this just helps with the mid-game overall, and increases super damage for us. Second to this is then On Your Mark, which grants 3 fragment slots. This just gives increased handling and reload speed per stack of On Your Mark we get. Precision kills grant stacks, but dodging also just gives us full stacks at ×3. The handling will be nice to increase weapon swap speed during the rotation we have as well. Lastly, I'm going to just sprint through the fragments, going over why each one is needed. First off, Ember of Torches gives us Radiant on melee hit. This is just for a constant buff if you add in weapon damage to the rotation. Ember of Singeing is one of the most important fragments we have. This gives 300% increased class ability regen when scorching targets. This allows us to constantly dodge for our melee back. Ember of Ashes is going to increase the Scorch stacks we apply. This is another must-have, as it allows us to proc ignitions more frequently for increased damage, and this should also keep Scorch stacks up longer to keep Ember of Singeing going. Ember of Beams is really just here to make sure that our Blade Barrage hits more consistently. If you do want, this could be subbed out for Ember of Empyrean or Ember of Solace for better Radiant effectiveness. And then lastly, we have Ember of Char. This should allow us to keep higher Scorch stacks on enemies even after ignitions are triggered, making it easier to reach the next ignition for increased damage. Looking specifically at Young Ahamkara's Spine, this is going to increase explosive damage of the Tripmine by 14%. It will also give us intrinsic fastball and prevents us from taking Tripmine damage. The main reason for this is that we get 33% energy to our Tripmine back anytime we deal ability damage, and as I mentioned, Scorch should count towards this, so the Tripmine itself is also able to give 2 ticks of energy back. Other than this, the only major things that you need on the build are going to be Bolstering Detonation and then Focusing Strike. Bolstering Detonation will give us 25% of our dodge back whenever we deal grenade damage, and then Focusing Strike will give 20% back anytime we deal melee damage. This just helps with the overall cycle, and these mods do have a 7-second internal cooldown on their use. Weapon-wise, Witherhoard and a Demolitionist Solar Rocket are the best options. This way you can pair your rocket with Font of Might if you want to. And I do also like to use Callous Mini Tool with Incandescent because if there are any adds nearby and I for some reason need class ability energy back, I can use this to get Ember of Singeing to proc. And then once I have my dodge, I can then get my melee, and then with my melee, I get my grenade, and you can see how the cycle starts up. For the actual damage rotation, you basically want to lead in with a Trip Mine and then hit a melee, and then by that time you should be able to throw another grenade and then dodge for your melee back. Once you've done this, throw melee again, and you should be able to get off 2 grenades because you'll keep getting stacks of energy. And then when adding in a rocket or Witherhoard, you really just want to keep your rocket out and let Demo constantly reload it, and then apply Witherhoard for some extra tick damage here and there. I took this against the Grasp Ogre, which is not the ideal place to use this, but it was the best place I had to easily test. And even with just Weakened Clear and no Font of Might, I did almost 1.5 million damage, bringing him to almost half HP. In an ideal setting, you would have had a Well of Radiance to be able to survive and hit a more optimal rotation. You can see me waiting for health here and there, slowing things down, meaning the damage potential that this build can output is pretty wild. I was also trying this out for the very first time when making this video, so getting more accustomed to the rotation will definitely make damage more optimal too. In my opinion, this is probably the best Hunter ability build for damage. There's really no setup, and all you need to do is spam the rotation. The only thing that I could think might beat this out is infinite golden gun spam, but either way, I think this is a solid build for both the mid game and for damage. Let me know your thoughts on the build in the comments below, and we did also just get a massive change that's coming to Lightfall for build crafting, so I might be making a video with all of those updates as well, so let me know if that's something you're interested in. I stream a bunch over on my Twitch where we do lowmans and speedruns live. A link to that and my Discord server are both in the description below. Anyways, that's all for this video, guys. As always, have a good one. Peace.